Nam is 22 years old this year, a third-year architecture student at a university in Saigon. He's tall, skinny, quiet, introverted, and has a habit of doing everything by himself, not to appear strong, but simply because he's been used to solitude since childhood. Nam's parents died in a traffic accident when he was 10. He lived with his grandmother in the countryside through middle and high school. When she passed away, Nam packed his things and moved to the city for college, working part-time to make ends meet. He doesn't like crowds, avoids hanging out with friends, and only wants a quiet place to study and get through each day. That's also the reason why, today, Nam is standing in front of a cheap rented room tucked deep in an alley, a place where people rarely pry, ask questions, and most importantly, costs less than half his old place. Nam pulled the key out of the rusty lock, his right hand gently sliding the iron door open with a long, creaking screech. The musty smell hit his face like unwashed bedding left for too long, mixed with something damp and pungent, like stagnant water in an old drain. He turned around and forced a smile to ease the tension. Nam placed his backpack down on the uneven tiled floor and spoke to the landlady standing behind him. "Has this room been empty for a while, miss?" The landlady, a woman in her early 40s with her hair tied in a bun and a face marked by life's experiences, replied softly, though a bit hesitantly. "It's been more than half a year. Someone rented it before, but they moved out suddenly. Now this is the only room left." Nam nodded, trying not to show discomfort as the foul odor began creeping into his throat. "I'm not picky, as long as it's quiet and cheap." The landlady looked at Nam for a moment, then nodded slightly. "Yeah, the other rooms here are rented by students or working folks. It's pretty quiet. Go ahead and move in. Let me know if you need anything." With that, she turned around, her footsteps echoing down the long hallway, each clack slow and distinct. Nam watched her go, feeling something stir inside, not exactly unease, but a sense of loneliness. Room number 6 sat at the end of the corridor, close to the property's back wall. The room was old and small but had a window that opened out to a rear yard. The afternoon sunlight shone through the dusty curtain, casting long streaks of light across the floor. Nam opened his backpack and pulled out a few items: laptop, books, toothbrush, washcloth. He arranged everything neatly, as if trying to fill the emptiness of the cold, worn room. His phone buzzed. A message from Hung, his close friend. "Did you find a place yet? Don't stay somewhere too cheap. Could be sketchy." Nam replied, "All good. A bit far from campus but quiet. I need peace to study." A moment later, Hung messaged again, "Call me if anything weird happens. And don't forget to burn incense for the ancestors when you move in." "Got it?" Nam smirked. Hung had been into spiritual stuff since high school. As for Nam, he always believed in logic and reality. Ghosts only existed in movies or in the minds of the superstitious. He muttered to himself, "What could possibly be weird?" Nam opened his laptop, plugged in his earphones, and started diving into architecture materials. He was so focused that he didn't notice when night had fallen. Nearly 1 a.m. The room was dimly lit by the desk lamp. Outside, the wind hissed softly. Nam closed his laptop and stretched. The crack in his back echoed through the still air. He stood up, used the bathroom, then returned to bed. As soon as he lay down, he heard a soft sound. Clack. It sounded like a door gently sliding. He frowned, sat up, and looked at the main door. It was latched shut. But then, the sound came again, not from the front door. It was coming from inside the room. Nam turned his head. The window. The curtain swayed gently, even though there was no breeze. A faint shadow, like someone standing outside behind the glass. Nam shot up, heart racing. He walked over and yanked the curtain aside. Outside was the high wall of the adjacent building. No one there. He opened the window and looked down. The backyard was pitch black, covered in patches of moldy moss. Nam shut it and mumbled, "Probably just a tree shadow." He went back inside, trying to force himself to sleep, but his eyes stayed open, ears alert to every faint sound. The next morning, Nam went out to get breakfast. A small local eatery stood just a few dozen meters from the rental. When Nam asked the lady owner about the place, she smiled faintly. "That rental? Haven't had a new tenant in a while. Used to be a few students. But I heard they often had sleep paralysis or insomnia." Nam looked surprised and asked, "And the landlady didn't mention any of that?" The owner added an egg to his rice box, replying vaguely, "Who would rent if she did? But if you're okay with it, then fine. Just, rumor has it the last few rooms in the row are spiritually heavy." Nam didn't respond, just took the rice and headed back. He opened the door and stepped inside, then froze. On the table, among the books he had arranged the night before, was a folded old piece of paper. Nam looked around. The door was still locked. Hands trembling, he unfolded the note, scrawled in shaky ballpoint pen, "Don't look in the mirror at 3 o'clock." Nam picked it up again. The ink was faded blue, the handwriting shaky and rushed. No date, no name. He swallowed hard, glancing around the room as if hoping it was some sort of prank. But aside from the whirring fan, everything remained silent. Nam mumbled and crumpled the note, tossing it into the trash. Probably someone stuck it in a while ago, and it got blown out. He tried to convince himself and brushed off the chill on his spine. After breakfast, Nam cleaned the room, changed the bedsheets, wiped down his desk and even the wall mirror, something he usually didn't pay attention to. The old mirror had a worn wooden frame, with faint scratches on the glass like someone had dragged a blade across it. The bottom left corner still had blotchy stains that looked like dried blood. Nam thought about removing it, but the nails were driven in too deep. He clicked his tongue. Whatever, it's just a mirror. That night, rain started falling unexpectedly. The raindrops drummed steadily on the tin roof like urgent drums. Nam sat at his desk, typing up designs for a group assignment. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. 3 a.m. Don't look into the mirror. Nam flinched. He stared at the screen. No name, no profile picture, just that single line. He immediately called back, but all he heard was the automated response. "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable." Nam hesitated for a few seconds, then deleted the message. He sat back at the desk, but his mind was no longer focused. 2:57 a.m. Nam jumped up from the bed. That night he had slept fitfully, feeling as if someone kept walking back and forth inside the room. The phone's clock beeped softly. Nam opened his eyes. Light from outside slipped through the thin window slats, making the whole room appear ghostly pale. He looked at the clock. 2:59. Then, as if something was urging him, Nam turned his head toward the mirror. He didn't clearly remember when he got out of bed, didn't remember how he ended up in front of the mirror. All he knew was that when Nam stood there, facing himself, his reflection in the mirror was no longer just him. On his left shoulder, a woman stood beside him, long hair covering her face, a wrinkled white dress. Nam held his breath, his hand trembled. He spun around, but behind him was only the empty wall. No one there. Nam turned back to the mirror, only himself remained. He backed away, breathing hard, and collapsed onto the floor. His phone vibrated again. "She's watching you from inside." The next morning, Nam went to a nearby phone shop, asking them to check the number that sent the message the night before. But the staff shook their head. "Can't trace it, sir. If it's a burner SIM, there's no way." Nam was about to say more when his phone vibrated again. This time it was Hung calling. He picked up, voice hoarse. "Hello?" Hung's sleepy yet anxious voice came through. "Are you okay, Nam? Last night I suddenly dreamed of you standing in front of a mirror. And someone touched your shoulder." Nam sat upright, pressing. "Did you see who it was? Was it a woman?" Hung was silent for a few seconds, then spoke slowly. "Long hair, white dress. But the face, couldn't see it. Completely dark, like something was covering it." Nam swallowed hard. A cold sensation spread through his body like needles prickling every pore. Hung continued. "I saw something show up in the mirror behind you. Some words appeared. It was blurry, but I think it said, 'reflect,' or something like that." Nam sprang to his feet. He looked toward the wall mirror. The surface was foggy from condensation, but when he approached, he saw a reversed message appeared in the corner of the mirror, as if written recently by a wet finger. "Broken ward, mirror remembers." Nam didn't know what "broken ward" meant. He didn't know why it had anything to do with him. And he didn't understand why ever since stepping into this room. Fragments of some old story kept surfacing like a warning. That things were never just about cheap rent. Nam sat dazed in front of the mirror. The message was still faintly visible, even after wiping it multiple times with a wet cloth. The more he wiped, the more the blurry marks spread like oil on water. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Hung again. Nam raised the phone to his ear. Voice raspy. "I'm still alive." Hung let out a breath of relief. "Good, I couldn't sleep. Ever since you moved there. I've had a weird feeling. Remember my cousin? The one who used to mess with charms back in middle school. Now living at Bu Kwang Temple?" Nam nodded, though he knew Hung couldn't see it. "Yeah, and? I sent her a photo of your mirror. She only said one thing. A broken ward never happens on its own. Someone must have done it wrong first." Nam frowned. "What does that mean? I'm not entirely sure either. But she said if something in the room was ever cursed and the person afterward didn't break it properly, things could bounce back. Best case, insomnia, hallucinations. Worst case." Hung trailed off, afraid to finish. Nam picked up his phone, took a photo of the mirror, then asked, "So what do we do now?" Hung spoke quickly. "I'm coming over tonight. I can't sit still. I'll bring a few things. Not to exorcise anything, just to be safe." Nam stayed silent. After a moment, he replied, "All right." 8 p.m. Hung arrived, carrying a paper bag filled with incense bundles, prayer beads, and a wooden-handled dagger. Nam looked and raised an eyebrow. "You going ghost hunting or jungle trekking?" Hung let out a dry laugh, then glanced around the room. "Even from outside, this place feels heavy. How've you managed to stay here?" Nam closed the door and drew the curtain tight. "I'm not sure, but every night, I hear someone walking in the hallway, like they never really left." Hung sat on the bed, pulled a folded piece of paper from the bag. "I asked my cousin to write this. She said if something feels wrong, you need to find out about the previous tenant. Because broken wards only trigger if someone misaligns the spell or uses it for the wrong purpose." Nam slowly nodded, his gaze drifting toward the study desk. Then he remembered. That afternoon, when he first moved in, the landlady had said something. Someone rented it before, but left suddenly. Nam stood up, opened his phone, and played back a secret voice recording he'd made upon moving in, a strange habit he had for remembering people's voices. In the recording, the landlady's voice said, "That girl, pretty, quiet, stayed for about 3 months. Then suddenly said she was getting married. But she moved out without notice, locked the door, and vanished. I thought she was running from debt." Upon hearing that, Hung turned, his face serious. If it were just a person, no one gets married without taking their stuff. Nam nodded. Both fell silent. Then Nam asked, "You know any way to dig up info?" Hung frowned, thinking, "Yeah, if someone ever reported this room to the police, there'd be a file. But since we're not family, access is tough." Nam suddenly thought of the landlady. He picked up his phone and called. Moments later, a familiar voice answered. "Hello, Nam?" Nam got straight to the point. "Miss, I wanted to ask more about the previous tenant. That girl, do you still have her info?" She paused, then replied slowly, "Yeah, I do. But, is something wrong?" Nam responded gently, "No, just noticed a few old items in the room. Thought I'd return them if needed." The landlady chuckled softly. Her name was Trang, Nguyen T. Trang, from Tay Ninh. I still have a copy of her ID and household registration. But, I think she had a condition. Every night she'd talk to herself. Once, I even saw her sitting in front of the mirror for hours. Hung leaned in and whispered to Nam. People affected by broken wards often obsess over mirrors. Because mirrors are reverse gateways. Nam thanked the landlady and hung up. A chill crept into his chest. He turned to Hung, voice dropping. "Do you think Trang never left this room?" That night, while both of them were reviewing everything, the mirror suddenly made a soft knock sound, as if someone tapped it from inside. Nam and Hung whipped around. In the mirror, they were both still sitting there. But, behind them, a third figure appeared, long hair almost covering the shoulders. White dress, standing directly behind Nam, her right hand rested on his shoulder. Nam froze. Hung panicked, grabbed the dagger, and lunged behind his friend, but in reality, there was nothing behind Nam. Only in the mirror, was there another person. Hung's voice trembled. "I see her. Nam, she only shows in reflections. She never left." Nam clenched his fists, trying to stay calm. If she hasn't left, it means something was left unsaid. Hung turned, panting. Or maybe, she's not dead yet. The next morning, the air in the room was still damp. Despite the blazing sun outside, Nam hadn't slept. He and Hung had stayed up all night, taking turns watching the mirror, waiting to see if the shadow would appear again. But after midnight, everything went quiet again. Hung opened an energy drink, took a sip, and said hoarsely, "I think we need to go to the girl's hometown." Nam leaned against the wall, nodding. "Tay Nin, I remember the landlady said her name was Nguyen T Train." Hung grabbed his phone, typed her name, and searched old info on Facebook, student groups, even paranormal forums. After more than an hour, he stopped at a post from 6 months ago. A female student named Trang, studying pharmacy, mysteriously went missing in Saigon. Family couldn't find her, phone unreachable. She previously lived in a rental in District 11. Police were notified but no leads yet. Hung pointed at the end of the post. "Here, her home address in Tay Ninh, Ap 3, Phuoc Hung Commune." Nam stood up abruptly. "Let's go." That afternoon, the two of them arrived in Tay Ninh. Phuoc Hung Commune was a peaceful countryside area, with red dirt roads, vast rice fields, and the distant sound of roosters crowing in the afternoon. Trang's family house sat nestled among a cashew garden, its lime walls aged and weathered. A woman in her 50s came to open the gate. She looked at Nam and Hung with caution. But when Nam politely bowed and spoke slowly, "Ma'am, I'm an old friend of Trang. We heard she lost contact, so we came to check in." The woman paused briefly, then nodded and invited both of them inside. She introduced herself. "I'm her mother. My name is Sao." The house was modest inside, but there was a small altar set up in the corner of the room. On it was a photo of Trang, bright eyes, but not smiling, staring straight ahead. Hung whispered, "There's a shrine, so the family must think she's gone?" Nam didn't reply, just quietly stared at the altar. Ms. Sao sat down on a wooden chair, her hand gripping the edge of her blouse. "I knew something was wrong. Ever since she disappeared, I dreamed of her standing in the yard, holding her belly and saying nothing. Some nights I even heard her calling me. Then out of nowhere, the mirror in her room cracked without reason." Nam sat across from her and gently asked, "Ms. Sao, may I ask, did Trang ever get involved with spiritual practices?" The woman bowed her head. A long pause passed before she finally answered softly. "She once loved someone, got betrayed. After that, she sought out a master to cast a reverse love charm." Nam and Hung glanced at each other. "Reverse love, what does that mean, ma'am?" Hung asked. Ms. Sao clenched her hands, voice trembling. "It means using a charm to pull someone back. But the price is that the soul must remain in the human realm if the charm fails." Trang took one wrong step, and then couldn't turn back. Outside, rain began to fall. Heavy drops landed on the tin roof, sounding like long, weary sighs. Nam asked, "That spiritual master, do you know who he is? Is he still alive?" Ms. Sao shook her head. "I don't know. She never told me. Just that one time, Trang brought home an old mirror. After that, she changed. She'd sit staring into it all night, kept mumbling that person's name." Nam suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He asked quietly, "What was that person's name?" Ms. Sao looked up, eyes reddened. "Tam." On the drive back, Hung looked out the car window and whispered, "I've got a feeling that mirror in your room is the thing." Nam nodded, his eyes heavy. A reversed charm is incredibly tenacious. Trang failed the ritual, and her soul got trapped. And if we don't break it properly, it'll keep searching for a replacement. Hung frowned. "A replacement?" Nam sat up straight, hands gripping the seat. "The person in the room after Trang is me." That night, when the two returned to the rental, the lights flickered in the room. The mirror was no longer fogged. Its surface was crystal clear, reflecting every detail. And in the center of the mirror, a new message appeared, written in something dark red. "If you can't break it, you must stay instead." The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Nam stepped back. The fluorescent light flickered, making the red writing in the mirror appear as if it were bleeding, each stroke dripping slowly to the floor. Hung swallowed hard, voice hoarse. "It knows you now. That's not just a warning anymore." Nam stood still, then reached out to pull the curtain over the mirror. "We have to find someone to break the charm. Tonight, at 10 p.m., Hung called his cousin, the one who used to practice charms and later became a nun at Bu Kwang Temple, for help. She agreed, but insisted Nam come to the temple so she could check his fate and aura. Nam and Hung sped through the night, light rain falling like fear trickling down their backs. When they arrived, the temple courtyard was silent. A dim oil lamp from the main hall cast an eerie glow over everything. A woman in a gray temple robe stepped out, her face serene, eyes deep. "Nam, right?" Nam nodded. "Yes, ma'am, it's me." She gestured for them to follow her into a small room behind the main hall. On a small altar sat a statue of the goddess of mercy in an old incense bowl. She took out a round bronze mirror and placed it on the mat. "Sit, look into this." Nam knelt down, eyes facing the mirror. It reflected nothing, just a black, bottomless void like a deep, empty pond. She nodded slowly. "Just as I thought, the reversed charm has already taken root. It's not possession like ghosts, but rather your mind has been locked into a distorted reflection. If left too long, you'll forget who you are." Nam looked at her and asked quietly, "Can she, Trang, still be saved?" She didn't answer right away. She lit 3 sticks of incense, whispered a prayer. After a moment, she said, "That girl wasn't evil, but because the spell was cast wrong, her soul got trapped. People like her can't pass on without a guide." Hung cut in. "A guide? Like, help her get out of the mirror?" She nodded. "To rescue a soul trapped in reflection, one must face themselves. The chosen one, in this case, Nam, must enter the ritual of reflection, meet the soul, and bring her out. But," she looked straight into Nam's eyes, voice slowing, "if your heart is not steady, you'll be the one trapped instead." Nam didn't hesitate. "I can do it." The ritual began at 2:45 a.m. She drew a circle of salt around the mirror in the rented room. Inside it, she placed an incense bowl, a white silk cloth, and a wooden comb. All were old personal belongings brought from Tainan by Trang's mother. As requested, she gave strict instructions. At exactly 3 a.m., you must look into the mirror. When you see the girl, reach your hand out to her, but under no circumstances must she touch your face. She can touch your hand. She can touch your heart. But if she touches your face, her spirit will take over. Nam sat in the center of the salt circle. Hung stayed outside, holding the incense holder and keeping time. The room darkened. Rain outside the window began to fall harder. 2:59. The mirror remained still. Nam gripped the prayer beads tightly in his hand. 3 o'clock. The curtain fell without anyone touching it. A gust of wind blew into the room from nowhere. In the mirror, Nam's reflection suddenly turned its head, even though he hadn't moved an inch. That reflection slowly tilted to the side. And then, Trang appeared. She stood next to Nam's reflection. A white dress, hair covering her face, holding a comb in her hand. The space inside the mirror was pitch black, with only the two of them, as if in a reversed parallel world. Nam swallowed, then gently reached out his hand. "Trang, come with me. You don't have to stay here anymore." The girl lifted her face. Pale skin, swollen eyes, as if she'd been crying for nights. But no voice, only trembling eyes. Nam kept his hand steady. "I know, you didn't mean to. But if you stay, you won't be yourself anymore." Trang shook her head gently, then picked up the comb and began brushing her hair. Strands fell onto her shoulders, then vanished. Outside the circle, Hung began chanting softly. The woman on the other side of the room held up a bronze mirror, pointing it toward the large mirror. In the mirror, Trang stepped closer to Nam, her hand extended, trembling slightly. Nam didn't move, but his eyes began to cloud over. His reflection slowly started to smile. Nam's reflection spoke, but no sound came out. "If you save her, are you sure you'll get out?" Nam shook his head firmly, his voice clear. "I don't need to get out. I just want her to." Then he took Trang's hand inside the mirror. Everything went black. Everything around Nam felt like it was being pulled backward. He felt his body being dragged through a layer of cold water, not wet, but heavy like stone. His ears rang. He could see nothing but darkness. Then a dim light appeared, flickering like stars in a foggy night sky. Nam was standing inside his own rented room, but everything was reversed. Furniture floated on the ceiling, the bed pressed against the upper wall, and the mirror was on the floor like an open doorway. From the far end of the room, a soft voice echoed, Nam. He turned around. It was Trang, standing next to a stained, moldy wall, her hollow eyes fixed on him. Unblinking, she spoke again, her voice soft as wind. "You're the first who didn't leave me behind." Nam stepped closer. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Nodding, "I don't know if I can get you out, but I won't let you stay here alone." Trang smiled sadly, her face now no longer terrifying, but filled with sorrow, like someone stuck between life and death. Nam asked, "Why did you use the charm?" Trang lowered her head, gripping her blouse tightly. "I truly loved Tam, but when I found out he was marrying someone else, I couldn't take it. I just wanted him to come back. I just wanted a family." Nam stayed silent. Something stirred inside him, not fear, but pity. Trang looked up. "But I did it wrong. I brought home an old mirror. Used the wrong ritual. I cut my hand, wrote our names inside the reflection. But," her voice broke, "when I finished, he came. But not to return. Just to tell me not to bother him anymore." Nam gripped her hand tighter. "That's why you couldn't leave." Trang nodded, tears welling up. "The mirror holds things that are unfinished. I was trapped inside, and after that, anyone who entered that room would be pulled into the reflected world." Nam looked around. The space began to contract. Everything on the ceiling, tables, books, lamps, started to fall downward in reverse. The room was turning inside out. Trang clutched Nam's hand, panicked. "There's not much time. If the room closes, you'll be trapped in my place." Nam looked at her, determined. "You have to step out. Go through the mirror door, and you'll be free." Trang trembled, backing away. "I'm scared. If I go, you won't make it back." Nam nodded. "I know, but you've been here long enough." On the floor, the mirror began to shake violently. Light surged upward in waves. The reflected doorway was open, but only for a moment longer before it would shut forever. Nam gently pushed her shoulder. "Go." Trang shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, I don't want to trade my life for someone else's." Nam smiled, his gaze calm. "I'm not dying. I'm just staying for a while." Trang bit her lip, then suddenly embraced Nam. Her whole body was ice cold. But that hug felt human. Then she ran, jumped straight into the mirror. A flash of white light exploded. The space collapsed. Everything went dark. Outside, Hung jolted. The incense holder snapped in half. The room shook slightly, like a small earthquake. The large mirror fell from the wall, shattering into pieces. The woman shouted loudly, "Nam!" There was no one inside the salt circle. Only the silk cloth Trang once used, left behind within the white circle. Hung rushed in, screaming, "Nam! Give Nam back to me!" But the room was empty. No sound at all. 3 days later, the room was repaired. The landlady posted a notice saying room number 6 was no longer for rent. She didn't say why, just shook her head whenever someone asked. Hung packed up all of Nam's belongings and brought them home. He placed Nam's laptop on the desk, planning to turn it on one last time, when the screen powered up on its own, even though the battery had died days before. On the black screen, a white line of text slowly typed itself out, as if someone were pressing each key. "I'm still alive, but I'm watching." The screen flickered. For a split second, Hung's reflection appeared, but behind him stood a man inside the mirror. Not clear, just looked very much like Nam. The laptop screen went black. The room dimmed in an instant, leaving only the steady, monotonous hum of the electric fan. Hung sat frozen. He panted, wiping sweat from his forehead. That line of text couldn't have been a coincidence. The laptop was out of battery. The charger wasn't plugged in. Then who typed that line? "I'm still alive, but I'm watching." Just thinking about it made Hung's spine go cold. He turned on the light, grabbed his phone, and opened the old text messages with Nam. The last message, from a few days ago. If she doesn't leave, it means something is still left unsaid. Now, Trang had left, but Nam had not returned. The next morning, Hung went to Bu Kwang Temple. He recounted everything, voice hoarse from sleeplessness. "I saw him. I saw Nam. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a hallucination. He's still alive, just inside." She remained silent for a long while, then softly said, "There's something I've kept from you, because I didn't want you two to fall deeper into the cycle. But if you saw it, then the karmic bond is still active." She went inside and returned with a small wooden box. Inside was a broken shard of mirror, sharp as a razor, glowing with a faint milky light. She placed it in Hung's hand, speaking slowly. This is a piece from the mirror bound by the reversed charm. Part of the ritual remains unfinished. If you truly wish to enter, look into this at 3:06. When the mirror reopens, Hung gripped the shard tightly, his eyes resolute. Even if I have to stay, I want to try. That night, Hung returned to room number 6. The landlady saw him and jumped in surprise. "Wait, what are you doing in there?" "I just locked the door." Hung didn't answer. He silently held out a paper with Nam's forged signature, something he had faked himself. The woman glanced at it, about to ask something, then simply sighed. "You're braver than most." 2:58 a.m. The room looked as if no one had ever lived there. The mirror shattered, salt scattered, paint peeling from the walls. Hung redrew the salt circle, placing the mirror shard at the center. He knelt down, eyes fixed on the shard. 3 o'clock, nothing happened. 3:03 a light breeze swept through. 3:06 as the clock's hand struck. The mirror shard began to glow. It didn't reflect Hung, but Nam, sitting inside a pure white room, utterly silent. Nam looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. He spoke, though his lips didn't move. "You shouldn't have come." Hung gripped the shard, nearly shouting, "I'm not leaving you here. If the mirror can hold one person, then it must be able to let someone go." Nam shook his head. "I'm holding it for you. If you enter, I don't know who will replace who anymore." The wind blew stronger. Windows rattled, curtains flailed. The salt circle began to fade. The shard in Hung's hand burned hot, its light pulsing. Nam frowned, shouting, "The mirror doesn't hold just one." Hung stepped back, but it was too late. Hung touched the mirror shard. A deep red light engulfed him. The room spun like a whirlpool, sucking him in. Then, silence. When Hung opened his eyes, he found himself lying in a long corridor lined entirely with mirrors. No beginning, no end. All the mirrors reflected him, but none were the same. One showed Hung laughing, one, older, one, bloodied, one held a broken mirror and wept. And finally, one mirror reflected nothing at all, except Nam standing inside it. Nam still wore the same old shirt, hands stained with blood, dark circles under his eyes. He quietly stared at Hung, didn't say a word. Hung stepped closer, placing his hand on the mirror. "I'm here, now it's your turn to go." Nam shook his head, mouthing slowly, "No, only one can leave." Hung stepped back, smiling sadly. "Then, I'll stay. You go." Nam closed his eyes. In the mirror, pieces around him began to crack and peel. The space trembled like glass tapped by a finger. He opened his eyes and smiled, for the first time. "I owe you one." And then, he stepped through the mirror. Outside, the mirror cracked. Nam collapsed onto the floor, gasping, hands trembling, eyes wide open. On the floor, shattered shards of the mirror. No more light, no more Hung, only a single line, scratched into the cement floor with a fingernail. The mirror holds one, the other keeps watching. 3 days later, Nam still couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw mirrors. Not the old one from the rental room, not even the endless reflections in the corridor, but Hung's face. Smiling softly, hand on the mirror, and then, gone. Nam stayed at Ms. Sao's house, Trang's mother, to stay far away from the old room. She didn't ask much, just quietly cooked meals and left sleeping pills on the bedside table each night. Tonight, Nam sat on the bed, eyes blank. Ms. Sao brought up a bowl of hot ginger water and sat beside him. She asked softly, "You don't blame him, do you?" Nam didn't turn. "No, he did what I should have done." She stayed silent, then pulled an old, yellowed paper from her pocket. She handed it to Nam. Before Trang went to Saigon, she wrote a letter, but never had the chance to give it. "Now, it's yours." Nam opened it. The handwriting was soft, slightly slanted, like a girl afraid of writing too hard. "If one day I'm gone, maybe I did something wrong, but I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted to be loved, just once. Truly." Nam stopped reading. He stood up, holding the letter, and walked outside. In the yard, a faint crescent moon hung above. Mist spread like a dreamlike curtain. He looked up and asked Ms. Sao, "Do you know who gave Trang the mirror?" Ms. Sao looked surprised, then nodded softly. "Yes, her name was Moy, lived at the edge of the hamlet. People called her Moi Mirror, because when she was young, she made a living reading fate and destiny through mirrors. Nam frowned. Is she still alive? Ms. Sao shook her head. No, but her old house is still there. No one dares enter. They say, she once rescued someone from inside a mirror, but that person died mysteriously afterward. And she never read mirrors again. Nam clenched his fists. Inside him, a voice echoed, a name, a possibility, an unresolved secret. The next morning, Nam rode his bike to the end of Hamlet 3. Ms. Moy's house was a low wooden stilt house, hidden among mango trees. The door was ajar, no one in sight. He stepped inside. Light filtered through the rotting wood slats. A musty smell rose, like burnt incense mixed with years-old damp soil. In the center of the house, covered by a white cloth, stood a full-length mirror, framed in black wood carved with dragon heads. Nam pulled out his phone to take a photo. The screen passed over the mirror, but did not show his reflection. He froze. Inside the mirror was a strange man, standing with his back turned, left hand holding a notebook, right hand holding a pen. On his shirt, a faded line of embroidery. The mirror returns the person keeps the promise. Nam trembled slightly. He crept closer to the mirror, eyes fixed on the image. The man in the mirror turned around. It wasn't someone else. It was Hung. He no longer smiled, his eyes heavy, like someone who had aged through grief. In the mirror, Hung quietly raised his hand, placed his index finger to his lips in a shush gesture. Nam halted, his heart pounded. The mirror glowed, not violently, not pulling, just softly, as if whispering. A child's voice echoed from somewhere deep within the house. Thin as smoke, not the first, and not the last. Nam turned quickly, alarmed, but there was no one in the room. Only a small wooden comb placed on a dust-covered altar. Carved on it was a faded line of text. Those who once looked, must not forget. Nam stepped outside. He stood under the eaves, staring out at the fog-covered fields. A truth rose within him. It wasn't just Trang, not just Hung. There were others, those who had entered, who had replaced, and then were forgotten. The mirror does not keep just one. The mirror keeps the memories of those brave enough to face their pain. Nam took a deep breath. He pulled out a small notebook from his backpack and wrote a single line. Day 3 since Hung disappeared. I saw him in the mirror, but I'm not sure if that was the mirror or me. That night, Nam opened his laptop for the first time since he returned. The screen turned on, steady, no messages appeared. He opened the audio recorder, plugged in his earphones. Then he spoke, voice low and slow. My name is Nam. I once looked into the mirror, and I am still watching. At the end of the recording, there was a faint sound of a notebook being flipped. It wasn't Nam. 1 week later, Nam began returning to a normal life, at least on the outside. He still went to the computer repair shop in District 5, where he used to work during his college years. Still sat in a corner, opening hard drives, applying thermal paste for customers. But deep inside, Nam knew he had veered off the old track forever. He no longer slept in closed rooms, never looked into mirrors at night, always kept the light on while showering. Every night, before sleep, Nam listened to the old audio recording, ending with that strange page-turning sound. It wasn't clear, but it was steady, like the beat of fingers tapping on dusty memories. Then one day, while checking a client's computer, Nam opened a temporary storage drive. Inside, he found a strange video with no title, in MP4 format, exactly 6 minutes and 6 seconds long. He clicked play. The image appeared, a small rental room, eerily similar to his, but clearly not the same. A rusty metal framed mirror hung above the desk. On the floor, someone sat motionless, clutching their head, murmuring. The camera angle was slightly tilted, as if the recording was secretly made from a computer. The voice in the video made Nam freeze. My name is Dewey. Day 4 since the reflection appeared. I saw a girl in the mirror. But it wasn't anyone else, it was me. Back in high school. Nam paused the video. Dewey? Who was that? Why did what he said sound exactly like what Nam had once experienced? Nam replayed the video, this time turning up the volume. At minute 5, the light in the video room went out. The mirror's reflection began to blur. But in the final flicker of light, a second figure stood behind Dewey, reaching out to touch his shoulder. The moment that hand touched, the screen went completely black. That afternoon, Nam tracked the name of the person who had once rented the machine. According to the invoice, Dewey Nguyen. Address: Room 303. Old rental block, Lac Long Quan Street. Nam arrived at 5 p.m. The rental block was damp. Stained walls. Room 303 was locked. But the neighbor said, "That guy moved out 2 months ago. No one knows where he went." Before he left, he smashed the mirror in the room. Blood splattered all over the wall. Nam asked, "Do you know where the mirror is now?" The man replied, "The landlady tossed it behind the house. None of us dare touch it." Nam went around the back, turning into a narrow path between two old walls. In the overgrown weeds, a broken mirror lay face down, its frame warped. Nam crouched down, about to flip it over when a dried blood inscription appeared on the back, as if someone had clawed it with their fingers. Not every mirror is meant for looking. Nam froze. A chill radiated from deep within his core. What happened to Trang? To Hung wasn't isolated. He sat on the ground, his mind spinning. Could it be these mirrors were all connected? A network? A virtual corridor? A reflective dimension? Where all those who used reverse charms or spiritual rituals were trapped. Nam recalled each detail. Trang had the mirror. Hung entered through the opening right. Ms. Moy had once unlocked a mirror. And now Dewey, someone who was never mentioned before, also vanished the same way. Nam whispered, "This isn't just a curse. It's a system." That night, Nam visited Ms. Sao. He told her about the video, about Dewey, about the identical room. She trembled as she listened. After a moment, she opened a drawer and pulled out a small box. She opened it. Inside were 3 shards of broken mirror, each labeled Trang 2019, Dewey 2022, Unknown 2016. Nam stared at her, stunned. "You knew about this?" Ms. Sao nodded, her voice heavy. "There was once a monk who collected shards from mysterious disappearances. He passed away. Before he did, he gave them to me, told me that if one day the 4th person appeared, to give them the final shard." Nam fell silent. She handed him the 4th shard. Nameless. It bore only a single symbol. Infinity. No beginning, no end. Nam held the shard. His eyes shone with resolve. "I will find Hung, and if anyone else is trapped in this corridor of reflections, I'll bring them out." 11:59 p.m. Nam sat in the center of his old rental room, where it all began. On the floor lay 4 broken mirror shards, arranged in a circle, each pointing in a different direction. In Nam's palm was the final shard, marked with the infinity symbol. He took a deep breath. The scent of salt, incense, and decaying wood blended into a thin, floating haze. His phone rang. It was Ms. Sao. Her voice trembled. "Are you sure? Once you link the mirrors, there's no turning back." Nam replied softly, eyes calm. "If I don't go, someone else will be called." Then he hung up. 12:06 a.m. The 4 mirror shards vibrated gently. Faint reflections appeared in each piece. Trang, sitting with her back turned, long hair down, holding a comb. Hung, eyes heavy, like someone who had lived in silence too long. Dewey, clutching his head, mumbling something inaudible. A stranger, wearing a long white dress, but with a blank face. Identity erased.